The Outcast Daughter and the Human Encounter. In the year 2347, the galaxy was a patchwork of alliances, empires, and isolated worlds. Among these interstellar players were the Quarathans, a proud and aristocratic alien species known for their strict social hierarchy and advanced technology. Their society valued physical perfection and intellectual prowess above all, leaving little room for compassion or acceptance of imperfection. Sira, the youngest daughter of the Quarathan Chancellor, was considered a blemish in her family's pristine lineage. Born with minor facial asymmetry, a trivial defect by most standards, she was shunned by her kin and labeled an outcast. Her existence was barely acknowledged by her family, and for most of her life, she was kept away from the grandeur of Quarathan society, hidden in the shadows of their crystalline palaces. Across the stars, humans were gaining a reputation in the Intergalactic Federation for their resilience, creativity, and their peculiar ability to form deep emotional bonds. Though seen as a lesser species by some, humanity had earned its place in galactic affairs through innovation and sheer determination. When an unexpected trade negotiation between the Quarathans and humanity arose, it brought Sira and Earth into an unforeseen collision. The terms of the negotiation were complicated, requiring months of discussion. As a gesture of goodwill, the Quarathans invited a human delegation to their homeworld for cultural exchange. One of the representatives was Captain Elias Carter, a decorated Earth diplomat and former engineer, known for his straightforward charm and unyielding sense of justice. When the humans arrived on the shimmering, crystalline Quarathan capital, Sira was ordered to assist as an observer. It was an unusual command from her father, likely meant to further humiliate her by exposing her imperfections to their distinguished guests. Reluctantly, she complied, masking her disdain behind a stoic exterior. Elias immediately noticed Sira's quiet presence in the delegation. Unlike the other Quarathans, who carried an air of superiority, she seemed more reserved, her luminous eyes betraying an inner world of emotions. While the other humans admired the architecture and the technological wonders of the Quarathans, Elias was intrigued by the enigmatic woman in the corner. During a break in the negotiations, Elias approached her, breaking the formal distance that most humans maintain with the Quarathans. "You seem different from the others," he said with a warm smile. "What's your story?" Sira blinked, taken aback by his directness. "I don't have a story worth telling," she replied, her voice measured but tinged with bitterness. "Everyone has a story worth telling," Elias countered. "Sometimes, it's just a matter of finding someone willing to listen." Over the following days, Elias continued to engage Sira in conversation, drawn to her sharp wit and unfiltered perspective. Slowly, her walls began to crumble, and she shared glimpses of her life as an outcast. For the first time, someone saw her not as a defect but as an individual with thoughts, feelings, and potential. Their growing connection did not go unnoticed. Whispers began to circulate among the Quarathan elites, who viewed the developing bond as an affront to their traditions. Sira's father, Chancellor Vorin, was particularly outraged. "You disgrace our house with this association," he spat during a private confrontation. "Humans are beneath us, and you are already an embarrassment. Do not compound your shame." But Sira, emboldened by Elias's unwavering respect and kindness, stood her ground. "For once, father, I will not let you dictate my worth. If humanity sees value in me, perhaps I should, too." The tensions between the Quarathans and humans escalated as the negotiations continued. Yet, amidst the political turmoil, a quiet revolution was unfolding in Sira's heart. For the first time, she began to believe that she could forge her own destiny, free from the suffocating expectations of her people. Unaware of the storm brewing behind the scenes, Elias proposed an unorthodox solution to the strained negotiations, a formal union between the Quarathans and humans. The idea was met with shock and outrage, but before the protests could erupt, Elias took a bold step forward, turning to Sira. "Marry me," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Not as a political gesture, but as a promise. Let us show both our people that something greater can come from our differences." Sira's breath caught in her throat. The weight of his words, the defiance of tradition, and the sincerity in his eyes all collided in her mind. For a moment, the world seemed to stand still. Would she dare to take the leap and defy everything her society had taught her? The proposal that shook two worlds. Sira stood frozen, her heart pounding as Elias's proposal echoed in her mind. Around them, the Quorothan delegation murmured in disbelief, their sharp voices filled with outrage and scorn. Chancellor Voren's face twisted into a mask of fury, his shimmering robes glinting as he stormed toward them. "This is an insult!" Voren bellowed, his voice reverberating through the crystalline hall. "A human? Marry into our bloodline? Preposterous! You've gone too far, Sira." Elias stepped forward, his calm but firm demeanor cutting through the chaos. "With all due respect, Chancellor, this isn't about bloodlines or politics. This is about bridging the gap between our peoples. Sira and I share something that transcends your rigid rules." Sira turned her gaze toward Elias, his unwavering confidence anchoring her amidst the storm of disdain. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. If she said yes, she would face ridicule, rejection, and possibly exile. But if she said no, she would lose the only person who had ever seen her for who she truly was. She inhaled deeply and met her father's fiery gaze. "I accept," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. "I will marry Elias." The hall erupted into chaos. Quorothan officials shouted their objections, some storming out in protest. The human delegation exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what would come next. But amidst the uproar, Elias smiled warmly at Sira, and for a moment, the noise faded into the background. The backlash. The announcement spread like wildfire, sparking heated debates across both worlds. On Quorotha, the news was met with outrage. Sira's name became a byword for betrayal, her choice seen as a rejection of everything her people held sacred. On Earth, the reaction was more mixed. While some admired Elias's boldness, others questioned the wisdom of such a union, fearing it would destabilize the fragile relationship between the two species. Sira and Elias faced resistance at every turn. The Quorothan Council of Elders summoned Sira, demanding she renounce the engagement and return to the shadows where they believed she belonged. The council chamber was a towering hall of crystalline pillars and glowing lights, a place where tradition was etched into every surface. "You have brought shame to our people," one elder declared, his voice cold and cutting. "Your actions jeopardize our standing in the galaxy." Sira met their accusations with newfound courage. "Our standing in the galaxy is already fractured," she said. "We hide behind our perfection while dismissing the value of others. Humans see strength in resilience, beauty in imperfection. Perhaps it is time we learn from them." Her words were met with silence, the elders stunned by her defiance. Though they dismissed her with threats of further punishment, Sira left the chamber with her head held high, her resolve unshaken. A wedding unlike any other. Despite the backlash, the wedding preparations began. Elias and Sira decided to hold the ceremony on a neutral moon, a shimmering celestial body that served as a diplomatic hub. Invitations were sent across the galaxy, and though many declined, a surprising number of humans and alien allies expressed their support. The venue was a breathtaking blend of human and Quorothan aesthetics. Crystal spires towered over lush gardens, and holographic projections of Earth's forests mingled with the alien glow of Quorothan flora. It was a place that symbolized the potential harmony between their two worlds. Sira stood in her chambers, gazing at her reflection. Her dress was a masterpiece, woven from Quorothan silk that shimmered like starlight, paired with subtle human touches, a tribute to both cultures. For the first time, she felt beautiful, not because of the approval of others, but because she was finally embracing herself. Elias entered the room, his simple yet elegant suit complementing her gown. He smiled, his eyes filled with admiration. "You're stunning," he said softly. "Ready to change the galaxy?" She nodded, her heart steady. "Let's do it together." The ceremony. As the guests gathered under the twin moons of the neutral moon, the tension was palpable. Quorothan elites sat stiffly, their disapproval evident. The human delegation, by contrast, radiated hope and curiosity. Representatives from other species watched with fascination, sensing the historic significance of the event. The ceremony began with a blend of human and Quorothan traditions. A Quorothan elder recited ancient vows in their native tongue, while a human officiant translated the words into English. Elias and Sira exchanged promises, their voices steady and filled with emotion. When the time came to seal their union, Elias held Sira's hands and spoke. "You've shown me a world beyond my own, Sira. A world of courage, resilience, and beauty. I promise to stand by you, no matter what challenges we face." Sira's voice was steady, her violet eyes glowing with determination. "And you've shown me that I am more than what others see. With you, I've found a strength I never knew I had. Together, we will build something greater than ourselves." As they kissed, sealing their vows, a ripple of applause broke out, hesitant at first but growing stronger. The sight of a Quarathan and a human united in love began to soften even the hardest hearts. The aftermath. When the ceremony ended, the guests lingered, some expressing tentative words of support. Even Sira's father, though still visibly displeased, seemed to acknowledge her choice with a begrudging nod. The union, while controversial, had sparked a conversation that could not be ignored. For Elias and Sira, the journey was just beginning. They knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but together, they were ready to face whatever came their way. Their wedding was more than a union of two individuals, it was a symbol of hope, a beacon for those who believed in the possibility of unity amidst diversity. As they left the ceremony hand in hand, the galaxy watched, speechless at what they had achieved. The road to acceptance. The wedding was over, but the journey for Elias and Sira had only just begun. As they left the neutral moon, hand in hand, the reality of what they had done began to sink in. The ceremony had been a symbolic triumph, but the galaxy remained deeply divided. Both of them knew the backlash was far from over. On their way back to Earth, their ship was inundated with messages. Some were congratulatory, expressing hope and admiration, but many were scathing, calling their union an abomination. News outlets across the galaxy dissected every detail of the event, fueling debates that raged on every corner of the Federation. "Do you regret it?" Elias asked one evening as they sat in the ship's lounge, watching the stars streak by through the viewport. Sira turned to him, her violet eyes soft but resolute. "No," she said firmly. "For the first time, I feel like I've made a choice that's truly mine. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried about what comes next." Elias nodded, reaching for her hand. "Whatever comes, we'll face it together. One step at a time." The first challenge. Their first challenge came sooner than expected. Upon their arrival on Earth, they were greeted by a crowd of protesters outside the Federation's central hub in New York City. Some carried signs that read unity, not division, while others shouted slogans condemning the Union. The sight was overwhelming, and Sira hesitated before stepping out of the ship. Elias squeezed her hand. "Ignore the noise. Focus on the people who believe in us." Taking a deep breath, Sira stepped forward. Cameras flashed as they descended the ramp, their every move scrutinized. A Federation representative greeted them, offering a formal welcome before whisking them away to a secured conference room. Inside, they were met by members of the Earth Council, the governing body representing humanity's interests in the galaxy. Counselor Amelia Hart, a seasoned diplomat, led the meeting. Her sharp eyes studied them as they took their seats. "Captain Carter, Lady Sira," she began, her tone measured. "You've caused quite a stir. While many admire your courage, others fear the implications of your union. We need to address the concerns of both sides." Sira straightened, her voice calm but firm. "We understand the gravity of what we've done. But this isn't just about us. It's about showing the galaxy that unity is possible, even between the most different of peoples." Amelia's expression softened slightly. "A noble sentiment. But you'll need more than words to convince those who oppose you. Actions will speak louder. Winning hearts and minds." Determined to prove themselves, Elias and Sira embarked on a tour across the Federation, sharing their story and advocating for unity. They visited human colonies and Quarathan settlements, speaking to people from all walks of life. In every speech, they emphasized the strength found in diversity and the potential for mutual growth when differences were embraced. At first, their efforts were met with skepticism, especially among the Quarathans. Sira often faced hostile questions from her own people, who accused her of betraying their traditions. But she never wavered, responding with honesty and grace. "Tradition has its place," she said during one heated debate in a Korathan council hall. "But when tradition becomes a cage, it stifles progress. My union with Elias isn't a rejection of our heritage, it's a step towards something greater." Elias, too, faced his share of challenges. Some humans questioned why he had chosen to align himself with a species that often viewed humanity as inferior. His response was always the same: "Sira taught me that even in the face of prejudice, there's hope for understanding. If we can learn from each other, we can achieve things neither of us could alone." A glimmer of hope. Slowly but surely, their efforts began to bear fruit. At a human colony on the edge of the Federation, they met a group of Korathan refugees who had fled their homeworld due to persecution. Moved by Elias and Sira's message, the colony had opened its doors to the refugees, fostering a thriving community where humans and Korathans lived and worked together. "You're living proof of what we're fighting for," Sira said during their visit. "This is what the galaxy could look like if we choose to see each other as equals." Moments like these bolstered their resolve, but the road ahead remained fraught with obstacles. Back on Koratha, Sira's father, Chancellor Vorin, launched a campaign to discredit her, accusing her of endangering their society's values. On Earth, political factions used the controversy to sow division, questioning humanity's place in the Federation. Through it all, Elias and Sira leaned on each other. Their bond grew stronger with every challenge, their love a source of strength that carried them through the darkest moments. A turning point. The turning point came during a galactic summit, where leaders from across the Federation gathered to discuss pressing issues. Elias and Sira were invited to speak, despite fierce opposition from certain factions. As they stood before the assembly, the weight of the moment pressed down on them. Sira began, her voice steady but passionate. "For too long, we've let our differences divide us. My people taught me to see humans as lesser, but Elias showed me the strength in their resilience, the beauty in their imperfections. Together, we've found a way to bridge the gap between our worlds." Elias stepped forward, his voice filled with conviction. "The galaxy is at a crossroads. We can choose fear and division, or we can choose unity and progress. Sira and I are living proof that even the deepest divides can be overcome. But it's up to all of us to make that choice." The room was silent as their words hung in the air. Then, slowly, applause began to ripple through the assembly. It started with a few individuals, but soon, the entire chamber erupted in applause. For the first time, Elias and Sira felt the tide beginning to turn. The fragile alliance. The applause from the Galactic Summit marked a turning point for Elias and Sira, but it was far from the end of their struggles. Their words had resonated with many, yet the divisions within the Federation remained deeply rooted. Some leaders viewed their union as a powerful symbol of hope, while others saw it as a dangerous precedent threatening the traditions and balance of power. Following the summit, the Federation Council proposed an initiative to formalize an alliance between humanity and the Korathans, inspired by Elias and Sira's union. The initiative, however, faced fierce opposition from Chancellor Vorin and other conservative factions within the Federation. Betrayal on Koratha. Back on Koratha, Sira's father, Chancellor Vorin, doubled down on his efforts to discredit her. He declared her a traitor to her species and stripped her of her family name. Her face was plastered across propaganda campaigns, labeling her the daughter who turned her back. Vorin's true motives, however, ran deeper. The proposed alliance threatened his grip on power, as it could lead to reforms that would loosen the Korathan Council's control over its people. For Vorin, maintaining the status quo was paramount, even if it meant sabotaging his own daughter's efforts. One evening, Sira received an anonymous message. The sender claimed to be a Korathan dissident within Vorin's inner circle and warned her of a plot to undermine the alliance. According to the message, Vorin had forged alliances with powerful conservative factions in the Federation, planning to derail the initiative during the upcoming Federation vote. "We can't let him succeed," Sira said, her voice trembling with determination as she shared the message with Elias. "If he stops this, it will take decades to repair the damage." Elias nodded, his expression hardening. "Then we fight back. Not with force, but with truth. A race against time. With the Federation vote fast approaching, Elias and Sira worked tirelessly to expose Voron's schemes. They traveled from planet to planet, rallying support and gathering evidence of corruption within Voron's circle. Their journey was fraught with danger. On more than one occasion, their ship was ambushed by mercenaries hired to silence them. But each time, they narrowly escaped, their resolve only growing stronger. At the same time, they worked to build bridges between humans and Quarathans on a grassroots level. On an agricultural colony, they introduced Quarathan farming techniques that doubled crop yields, earning the gratitude of local human farmers. On a Quarathan outpost, they shared human engineering designs that improved the colony's infrastructure. These small victories matter, Elias said during a quiet moment. They show that cooperation isn't just an ideal, it works. Sira nodded, her eyes filled with hope. And it proves that our bond isn't just symbolic. It's the foundation of something real. The breaking point. As the day of the vote arrived, tensions reached a fever pitch. The Federation Council gathered on the diplomatic station Halcyon Prime, a neutral ground for intergalactic negotiations. Representatives from every member species filled the vast chamber, their faces reflecting a mix of anticipation and apprehension. Elias and Sira were invited to speak once more, this time addressing the council directly before the vote. Sira stepped forward first, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. My father and others like him would have you believe that unity is weakness, that traditions must never be questioned, she began. But I have seen the truth. The strength of humanity lies not in their perfection, but in their ability to adapt, to learn, and to grow. That is a lesson my people, and all of us, can benefit from. Elias followed, his tone firm and resolute. This isn't just about one marriage or one alliance. It's about choosing a future where differences are a source of strength, not division. If we fail to take this step today, we risk stagnating in fear and mistrust. But if we succeed, we pave the way for something greater. Their words were met with applause from some quarters, but others remained skeptical. Chancellor Voron rose next, his voice dripping with disdain. This union is a farce, he declared. A dangerous experiment that threatens the fabric of our society. We cannot afford to gamble our future on naive idealism. The chamber erupted into heated debate, with voices clashing over the fate of the proposed alliance. As the arguments raged on, Sira felt a pang of doubt. Had they done enough? Could they overcome the deeply ingrained fears and prejudices of so many? An unlikely ally. Just as the council seemed on the verge of deadlock, an unexpected voice cut through the noise. Councillor Virith, a respected Quarathan elder known for his neutrality, stood to speak. I was skeptical of this union, he admitted, his deep voice resonating through the chamber. But I have watched these two face challenges that would break even the strongest among us. Their courage, their determination, it has changed my perspective. Perhaps it is time we let go of our fear and take a chance on something new. His words carried weight, and the chamber fell silent as the council prepared to vote. One by one, the representatives cast their decisions, their votes displayed on holographic screens for all to see. The vote. As the final votes were tallied, the chamber held its collective breath. The results appeared on the screen, the alliance was approved by a narrow margin. A ripple of relief and applause spread through the room as supporters celebrated the historic decision. Sira turned to Elias, her eyes shining with emotion. We did it, she whispered. Elias smiled, pulling her into a tight embrace. No, you did it. You showed them the strength they didn't know you had. But even as they celebrated, both knew the work was far from over. The alliance was just the beginning. A fragile first step toward a brighter future. There would be resistance, setbacks, and challenges ahead. But together, they were ready to face whatever came their way. The cost of unity. The fragile alliance between humans and Quarathans had been approved, but the battle was far from over. The vote was only the first step. Implementing the alliance would require cooperation, compromise, and an unwavering resolve to overcome centuries of mistrust. Elias and Sira returned to Earth as heroes in the eyes of many, but they also became targets for those who saw the alliance as a threat. Protests erupted in major cities, and even within the Federation Council, dissenting factions plotted to undermine the progress that had been made. The sabotage. A few weeks after the vote, news broke of a violent attack on a human Korathan research facility that had been established to promote technological collaboration. The facility, located on the neutral colony of Nova Terra, was reduced to rubble by an explosion. Dozens were injured, and the incident reignited tensions between the two species. Elias and Syrah were called to a crisis meeting at the Federation headquarters. The room was tense as representatives debated how to respond. "This was clearly the work of extremists," said Councillor Hart, her tone sharp. "We cannot let them dictate the future of this alliance." Chancellor Vorin, who had reluctantly agreed to abide by the Council's vote, seized the moment to attack the alliance. "This is what happens when you force unnatural unions. The Korathan people will not stand for these risks to our security." Syrah rose to her feet, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "This attack isn't a reflection of our alliance, it's a reaction to it. Fear drives people to lash out, but we cannot let fear dictate our path. If anything, this proves why we need unity more than ever." Her words silenced the room, but the tension remained. Elias leaned forward, his tone calm but firm. "We propose an independent investigation into the attack, conducted by a neutral party. Let's uncover the truth before jumping to conclusions." The council reluctantly agreed, but Elias and Syrah knew the road ahead would be treacherous. A dangerous mission. Determined to uncover the truth, Elias and Syrah volunteered to visit Nova Terra themselves, despite the risks. They wanted to show their commitment to the alliance and rebuild trust in its vision. When they arrived on the colony, the devastation was stark. The once thriving research facility was reduced to rubble, its advanced labs and pristine gardens now a smoking ruin. Human and Korathan survivors worked side by side to clear the debris, a somber reminder of what was at stake. As they spoke with the survivors, Elias and Syrah uncovered troubling clues. Security footage from the facility revealed masked individuals planting the explosives, their identities obscured. However, one of the saboteurs made a crucial mistake. A pendant bearing a Korathan family crest was visible for a fleeting moment. "This isn't just an act of terrorism," Syrah said as she studied the footage. "It's political. Someone is trying to frame my people to destroy the alliance." Elias nodded. "And we're going to find out who. Unlikely allies." Their investigation led them deep into the underbelly of galactic politics. They reached out to trusted contacts on both sides, piecing together a web of alliances and betrayals. To their surprise, they received help from an unexpected source, Councillor Virith, the Korathan elder who had supported the alliance during the vote. "I suspected foul play even before the attack," Virith admitted during a clandestine meeting. "There are factions within our society that will stop at nothing to maintain the old order. If you can expose them, it could shift the balance of power." With Virith's guidance, Elias and Syrah uncovered evidence linking the saboteurs to a shadowy group of Korathan elites who had been funding anti-alliance efforts. Among the names listed was someone Syrah knew all too well, her father, Chancellor Vorin. The confrontation. The revelation shook Syrah to her core. For all his opposition to the alliance, she had never imagined her father would resort to violence. Confronting him was a risk, but she knew it was a step she had to take. Returning to Koratha under the cover of darkness, Syrah and Elias sought out Vorin in his private chambers. The once Grand Patriarch seemed smaller now, his arrogance tempered by the weight of his failing schemes. "You dare to accuse me of sabotage?" Vorin spat when Syrah presented the evidence. "I acted to protect our people from your foolishness." "You didn't protect anyone," Syrah retorted, her voice shaking with emotion. "You endangered innocent lives and tarnished everything our people stand for. This isn't about protection, it's about your fear of losing control." Elias stepped forward, his voice steady. "The truth will come out, Chancellor. You can either face it with dignity, or be remembered as a coward." For a moment, Vorin seemed ready to lash out, but the weight of their words and the evidence against him was undeniable. With a defeated sigh, he sank into his chair. "Do what you must," he muttered. "But know this change comes at a cost. A fragile victory." With Voron's confession and the evidence in hand, Elias and Syrah presented their findings to the Federation Council. The revelation sent shockwaves through the galaxy, exposing the lengths to which some would go to maintain division. The investigation's conclusion strengthened the Alliance's position, but it also underscored the fragility of their progress. Trust would take time to rebuild, and the scars of the attack would linger. Back on Earth, Elias and Syrah reflected on all they had endured. "We've won a battle," Elias said, "but the war for unity is far from over." Syrah nodded, her gaze steady. "Then we keep fighting. Not with weapons, but with understanding. The galaxy deserves better, and we'll show them it's possible." As they stood together, watching the sunrise over Earth, they knew their journey was far from over. But for the first time, they felt the faint glimmer of hope that their vision for a united galaxy might one day become a reality.